Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am so excited for this little interview we have going on here. I have Ralph Tedesco from Zenescope Entertainment. And if you do not know anything about Zenescope, you will by the end of this. I am excited to talk about Grimm Fairy Tales and some of the other titles like Possessive. And I really kind of just want to pick your brain a little bit and get the word out there because I do feel like you guys are one of the most underrated, in my opinion. But starting off, I ask everyone, what got you into comics?
Hi. So yeah, I, s- I- it's a weird story.
Hmm.
I didn't really read comic books growing up. I was a, um, I was a screenwriter, an aspiring screenwriter and actor in my 20s. I had a writing partner. We had written a couple screenplays together. I was living in LA. We were both from Philadelphia. And I was living in LA, acting, writing, et cetera, et cetera. And I was home visiting in Philly, and my now business partner had asked me what I know about comic books. I said I didn't know much. He said, I want to write a comic book series. Would you want to write one with me? And I was like, okay, I don't know anything about superheroes. And he said, oh, we don't have to do superheroes. We can do anything we want. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know this. And so I started researching like what comic books really were at that time. And this is like early 2000s. So I picked up Preacher. So Preacher was the first comic book I ever read.
That
Um,
was your first comic. Wow.
first, first comic book. I mean, I knew what comic books were, and I think
Right.
I probably had like, I remember like maybe kind of having like an X-Men comic when I was a kid, but never really reading it or being in like really knowing, I didn't know anything. So I read Preacher and I was like, okay. And I loved it. And then I picked up, what else did I read? I started reading Hellblazer, a couple other things, and then I kind of understood like, okay, this medium could be anything. It doesn't need to be superheroes only. Um, and and then I started to really enjoy the medium. And we started writing a series called Grimm Fairy Tales in 2005. Self-published it, and the rest was history, I guess. At the time, we were one of the best-selling indie comics on shelves. It was us up there with like Walking Dead. Walking Dead had been around for probably a good maybe year before we came out with our book, but we were up there in the numbers category with Walking Dead right away. And for us, doing a maybe 10,000 copies a month was a big deal, especially with
Right.
an unknown publishing company. Um, so from there, we kind of just decided to do more. We never really set out to become a publishing company at first. We were going to publish through Image, or we were going to go through another label like a lot of other creators do. And we were going to just do it like a sort of a creator own thing, and then we decided we would do our own thing, and it worked out.
You know what? I didn't even realize because I'm always super awkward in these interviews. I never even asked how you were today. I want to apologize for that.
I'm offended and hurt.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
how no, we jumped right into it. It happens. No, I'm well. Thank you for asking. How
I
are you?
always get a little nervous in the beginning, so I
Oh,
wanted to
no,
make sure I apologize.
don't
But
be nervous.
you mentioned Image and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you because I was a little confused on you have quite a few, you have your Grimm fairy tales, but you also have like Mango and Bunnyman or Possessive. Do you
Hmm.
guys I know you helped write Mango and Bunnyman, correct?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So do you with titles like Possessive, are those creator owned or are those company owned?
So what Mango and the Bunny Man. So what happens there is that project, um, we we map out we sort of outline the story together at a story conference. So we do story conferences every quarter of the year. My business partner Joe and I, and then our editors will be in a room and we'll bounce ideas off each other. this was sort of Joe's baby. Joe came up with this concept. He pitched it to us in the room. We loved it. We kind of brainstormed the first issue together. He wrote it. Um, and then he went off and wrote issue 2 and 3 on his own after he had the outline all kind of mapped out. Um, so sometimes it works like that, where we bounce the idea off each other, and then one of us just writes it. Sometimes we've written together in the past. It doesn't happen as often anymore. And then with Possessive, that's sort of a creator owned book because what how that came to be was, I don't know, maybe your audience knows, like the Goldbergs, the TV series, the Goldbergs been on the air forever. Um, Adam Goldberg is a friend of ours. We met him through another writer, a comic book writer, and they had written, we had hired them. So it was a work for hire. We hired them to write a series called Conspiracy for us. Saying how that happened was we outlined the concept of where we wanted to go with the story, and then we handed it off to Adam's writing partner Hans, and then Hans took that outline and then wrote it based on our original concept. That's not really creator owned. That's our series where we hire a work for hire, make a work for hire agreement, and the writer goes off and writes it, and he gets paid to write it. With Possessive, Adam and Hans actually called me, I think it was over Christmas last year, and kind of pitched me this sort of idea they had. And they were like, hey, we want to write this. Like, would you publish it? Like, and we worked out the deal points. They wrote it. We gave notes, and it was more of a, I guess that was the most creator owned we can, in a way that I could say we do. However, we still hire the art team and publish the book and everything. So they just had to be responsible for writing the story, if that makes sense. So
Yeah. The conspiracy one, is that with the Illuminati, the New World Order story that you guys did a while back?
yes, so we had two versions. We had the first iteration was the Illuminati, which Hans wrote, and then I think Joe co-wrote that. So my business partner Joe co-wrote that with him based on our outline. I think just of one or two issues. And then the second sequel was the Aliens arc, and that was with Hans and Adam Goldberg writing it.
I
And
loved Possessive. Are we gonna see? I
sure,
gotta ask. It was, not gonna spoil anything because I've been recommending it every week. But um, are we gonna see any more? Wait, kind of left a little
any
open
more
ended
possession?
here.
I hope. Um, I want to. We left it open. The reception's been good. We I don't want to say yes for sure because then you guys are going to hold me to it. But I do want to do a sequel. And I also do want to. I would love to make it as a feature film. Now that this comic book came out, I'm like, this would make an awesome movie.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, yeah, that would be so funny.
Fun concept. It's really smart. It was one of those pitches that I heard that like right away. I just was like, yeah, that's great. Like this is a good story. Like this is something we got to publish. Aside from the fact that it's Adam and Hans. I mean, Adam's been doing successful comedy in the TV world for years. So I already knew he had a lot of talent. And Hans has been a comic book writer as well for years and written
Right.
screenplays. So that always helps because it instills confidence as a publisher going, all right, these guys know what they're doing. And I don't want to have to handhold the writers either. So we were able to like let them do their thing. And the notes we gave, I think, were minor. We didn't have to give any major notes to the story, but they're great. Like these guys are professional writers because they'll take your notes and they'll apply them, and they don't complain. They don't, if they think something belongs or they push back, that's great. But they're very respectful that way. So it was great. We just have a really good working relationship with them. So it's been cool.
That's awesome. I like I said, I love the Grimm fairy tales, don't get me wrong, but I love
Yeah,
the just the comedy aspects of the side titles that
yeah.
you have. They're
We're
so
doing.
good.
We're
Like
doing. Thank you.
I laughed out loud when Bunny Man said that his dad was the Easter bunny. Like there's so much good aspects of it. It's really really enjoyable for and I mean, obviously not for kids, but I mean, any sort of
No.
genre fan, if you're a superhero fan, if you're a, you know, indie fan, you're going to enjoy stuff like that. So, as far as the Grimm fairy tales, for anybody unfamiliar with your work listening, can you kind of tell them about, working with those IPs and the universe that you've connected and everything surrounding it?
Yeah, it's well, and real quick as a side note, we are doing a Man Goat and Bunny Man sequel. I'll announce that.
Ah, I love it.
So that's coming for sure in 2022. But as far as like Grim Fairy Tales, yeah, I we started with the reinvention of public domain IP was our thing. With the Grim Fairy Tales, we realized there was no real at that point in 2004 when we kind of got the ball rolling. There wasn't much out there. There was Fables, which was Vertigo, and um, then there wasn't really anything like what we wanted to do, which is like almost like a Tales from the Crypt meets fairy tales.
Right.
Um, so it was like let's reinvent these fairy tales for a modern audience. Let's like flip them on their head. Let's make them more. Let's like read the original dark original stories, which are really creepy, and like implement some of the original darkness into these comics. We kind of then as we started publishing these one shot, they were almost like the first early iterations were almost like each issue was a standalone. It was like let's take Red Riding Hood, let's take Cinderella, and it was its own story. And then we moved on, and then we created this sort of our version of the Crypt Keeper, which was Celia Mathers, who kind of
Mhm.
gave these people the book. She hands them the fairy tale book. It's people in the present day who have a dilemma, a moral dilemma they have to choose between. It's a very simple concept. Moral dilemma. Celia comes along, hands them the book, tells them to read the fairy tale. They read the fairy tale's all messed up, twisted, and then they either heed that advice or heed that warning and choose the right path, or they go and still choose the wrong path and then face the consequences. But we did that for a certain number of issues, and then we realized we were running thin on well-known fairy tales, and we didn't realize how popular the series was going to be. We were originally thinking maybe we get to 6 issues if we're lucky, maybe 12.
Right.
Um, then we started to realize, okay, there's this is really popular. Let's evolve the story and like evolve who Sela is. Let's just keep going. Let's keep making like build this universe out. And that's what we've done now for you know I guess almost 200 issues of Grimm Fairy Tales, not including spin-offs and such. So we managed to really turn this into a long. I mean, it's been running in print since 2005 nonstop, so it's pretty cool. And of course, we get the people, new readers might see some of the covers, so we do the variant covers that are more salacious. So you have like the sexy
Right.
vibe on them, and that was really a marketing tool early on. Like this is 2005, and we were like a no-name company, and it just made sense. Like we didn't want the stories to ever be like I wasn't writing a story to have like a half naked heroine or a half
Right.
naked protagonist in the book. I had no interest in that. It was a regular story. It was just like a story about Cinderella killing her stepsisters or some twisted thing we came up with. But we found out early on that like especially back then there weren't nearly as many female readers to be quite honest. Now it's started. Now you're seeing that evolution over the last 15 years of much more female readers. But back then, it didn't feel like there was many when we were doing our research for demographics, and we started doing these sexy covers because they sold well. And it was like, oh, I could do a sexy Red Riding Hood, and I'll sell extra copies of this particular book. So now the fact that we still do that and they've become really collectible. Our books are very collectible, especially the salacious covers we do. Um, that everybody who doesn't read our books automatically thinks, oh, that's just like they're probably just doing like TNA comics, which
Right.
isn't the case. It's not the case, but it's just what the rap is, and I get it. So it's like, you know, at one point, it's like, well, that's our marketing tool, and it's worked for us for 15 years. Let's do it. But on the second hand, it's sort of like we want to just tell good stories, and that's what we really try to focus on.
You guys were kind of doing like the strong, because a lot of your protagonists are female, right? You guys were doing like the strong female empowerment before it was a marketing gimmick.
Yeah, it was well. That's it. We didn't do it on purpose, and we didn't do it with any other reason than to go. I didn't set out to write female characters thinking I know how to write a female really well. It was more like I wrote a character. I would write that character like I'd write a male character in a lot of ways too. And I felt like back then we weren't virtue signaling. We were coming up with stories that were reinventing public domain. And a lot of these fairy tale characters were all females. So it was just made sense. Like, okay, if we're going to do a badass arc about a female like Robin Hood or whatnot. Like we started gender bending the characters because it made sense to our universe, and we
Right.
knew we were onto something. We knew we were building something, and it was cool because we were like, oh, we can just write these like nobody's doing this, and we can just have fun now. Like I don't know, I don't know how to really explain it other than like it kind of was accidental and you know, we never set out to try to go, we just want to do female characters because, no one else is doing it. But then we realized no one else was really doing it at that time. And we just
Right.
went with it. And we started seeing that sort of, because we were doing a crap ton of conventions back then. Like we still do. But when we go to these conventions, we'd have a lot of women coming to our booth and going, "Oh my God, like you're the reason I read comics. You're the reason I jumped on the comics. I went to the comic book store with my boyfriend. I didn't want to be there. I saw Grimm Fairy Tales and now I'm obsessed. Or I saw Wonderland, your Alice in Wonderland story, and I'm obsessed with your comics because the women in our comics are empowered. They are badass. Um, so to us then it became sort of a little bit of a responsibility to continue that and then as we saw it evolve over the years, like people jumped onto that bandwagon as well, and whatnot, and that was only a matter of time coming anyway.
Right.
um
Um,
yeah.
that was actually going to be my next question. Are you surprised that it got such a huge female demographic? Like, there was a lot of women that really liked it. Didn't you guys do a contest at one time for that also?
The contest for
For the women dressing up in
oh
cosplay?
oh my god, yeah, that was years ago.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. We
I'm
did
aging
we had
myself.
like the Zenescope Girl of the Month, the cosplay. Yeah, like it was weird. Like 2000, like again, 2005 was our first Comic Con, and there we came. We brought Grimm Fairy Tales #1, and we brought another book with us, Jindai. I think it was Jindai, which never saw the light of day past like issue 4.
Oh, no.
But poor Jindai. It was like a supernatural samurai story, but nonetheless, we brought girls. Was my girlfriend at the time, a couple of their friends dressed up in fairy tale outfits, and they were like, we were the one booth that had that. We were it, and like everybody was swarming our booth. We sold out of our books. We had printed, I want to say 10,000 copies of issue 1. Maybe it was 5. That was 10,000. And now we didn't sell them all out at that Comic Con, but we sold out of what we had at Comic Con that weekend. And cosplay wasn't yet as nearly as big as it is now. So we became that company who was doing like the cosplay. We'd be the guys with the girls at the booth, and again, at first you're seeing 95% men right at your booth because and Comic Con was so many more guys than it was girls
Right.
back then. And then slowly but surely over the course of a few years, it just became more female. And again, like women coming to our booth going, I really love reading Zenescope. Do more. Like, of course, we'd always have people come up, and it wasn't a large percentage. Like it was very small people who would like get mad at the covers, um, and kind of blast us for covers. And it was just like, hey, what are we gonna do? Like that is what it is. We are who we are. I can't really, as long as I'm not doing anything that I think is going to be uh, really truly offensive or be against my moral compass, and
Right.
then I'm fine with it. Um, and yeah, if we were doing TNA comics or we were doing like certain type of comic where it's all sex or it's all this or that, then that wouldn't. I wouldn't want to do that anyway. Um, but yeah, the number of female readers over the years really has surprised me. It's been really cool, and it's been cool to like get that support from female readers too, because it validates what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I do have a couple questions from the chat. So you see
Yeah,
yourself as more of as the opposite to Avatar Press, where they do salacious covers and also put it in the books. You keep it separate.
we keep it separate. Avatar has Boundless. I guess that's what you're referring to.
Hmm.
With that Undead Quinn. Yeah, I mean Boundless. I never really read it. I read them. I know William at Avatar. I know the publisher very well. Avatar, they've done a lot of good books in the past too. But yeah, I can't really speak to what they do, but I know what we do, and I know that like that's no interest of mine. Like I don't, I we just never wanted to go to that point. Like it's just not our thing. And I'm sure it sells well for certain companies. I can guarantee you, there's people out there doing TNA comics and TNA interiors, and they probably sell very well for those guys. That's great. That's just not the storytelling I have interest in.
Right, exactly. You want fully fledged characters, and you
Yeah,
can see that through your work. You really can.
thank you.
So when it comes to using public domain, was that hard? Was it, not an issue at all, or was there any loopholes you had to jump through?
No, it wasn't an issue with most stuff. It really wasn't an issue. There was a little issue with like when we did the Reanimator stuff. We couldn't call it Reanimator. That's a public domain story, but we called it Herbert West, the Chronicles of Herbert West, I think. Um, but there was mostly no problems. I think there was a little concern early on, and I forget. It's been so long when we did Neverland because the Peter Pan mythology, I think, had just entered public domain or was just entering public domain. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was something else. It was either Peter Pan or was it maybe another? It could have been another public domain, but it was one of these. It was one. There was one estate that like it just had expired, so we were able to do it, and there was no issues. But that was
Gotcha.
sort of our way in. We did it purposefully because nobody knew who we were. So it was a way of getting a license without paying a licensing fee and battling with companies like Dark Horse or maybe like IDW or all these other companies that
Yeah.
gobble up all the good licenses. We did go after the license for the movie Seven. I don't know if you're familiar with Seven.
Yep. And
Um,
then you guys had Charmed also, correct?
we did do Charmed later on. We did Final Destination. We did Seven. We did Final Destination and Seven as a deal
Hmm.
with New Line Cinema. They forced they forced Final Destination onto us, and we said we would do it. And then we ended up making a huge sale off that book because Circuit City, if you remember Circuit City, uh,
Yes, I
they
do
had
actually.
bought like something like 250,000 units and
Wow.
shrunk wrapped it in their Final Destination 3 DVDs. So they purchased 250,000 units from us over, for all their DVDs, and that put us in business. Really, that got us to the next level. We always joke that we put Circuit City out of business,
Oh, no.
but
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
no, but yeah, that was sort of like a happy accident doing Final Destination, and then
Yeah.
Seven did really well. Seven was one of those things where we were like, let's just try to establish ourselves as the go-to horror guys. Um, and then we kind of fell away from that. We became these are the go-to sexy cover guys, which is not really what we wanted. And it's like, no, we do a lot of cool horror stuff, and we've been doing this forever. Like, we don't just do sexy covers. We do, a lot of cool stuff. We do horror really, really well, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
our bread and butter. And like, you know, I just, I get it though. I get the confusion sometimes when people see the covers.
Do you ever get any pushback? Like I know there's been a lot of changes, at least in the mainline comics, when it comes to how they draw women. Do you guys like ever get, because there's no issue as long as they're characters, in my opinion, which are truly great characters. Been reading them for a long time. But do you ever have to deal with that
With
outrage stuff with the way you draw women?
um, only like I see stuff on Twitter sometimes.
Eh.
It's mainly Twitter trolls. Like some people get really like annoyed, like carried away with it.
Yeah.
And it's clear, I've seen some stuff from like actual creators. Like a lot of it comes from comic book writers and like
Oh
aspiring
wow.
writers yeah, and it's weird. It's almost like they're angry that like we're successful, maybe. I don't know. Like, and I've seen some successful writers make comments too here and there. And I don't know. It's people hate for several reasons. It's fine. It kind of for a while, it did take me a little bit to kind of not want to fire back at people and go,
Right.
screw you, like what the hell, you don't know anything, blah 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 blah. Um, try reading one of the books, but then after a while, it's like it doesn't matter. Like they have their agenda for whatever reason. If people want to hate you, they're going to hate you. If they, you know, we have heard like of people like who have given us a chance after realizing what we do, and then have come back and said, "Hey, I was wrong about you guys." So that's always cool too to hear that. And then there's people who might not, they might read some of the books and just not like the like the storylines. I mean, that will happen, and we might not be for everybody.
Right.
And that's fair. I mean, listen, everybody is totally entitled to be critical of whatever they read. I just hope people will read the books without just going, hey, like, no, I don't want to read this because there's a sexy cover on it. Because what we also do is we try to publish, every book has like 3 variants,
Hmm.
and like every book will always have a regular non quote unquote non sexy non salacious cover, at least one, maybe two. um the At the end of the day, though, no matter what, if we do put a like more, say, sexy cover on that book, that's always going to sell
Oh
way more,
yeah.
way more than the other two. Just it's just how it is.
Didn't
Yeah,
you guys recently switch kind of your market, or not marketing style? Your you went from like floppies to the OGNs, or the bigger format, um
we
in the past
yeah
year or so.
yeah we
What
changed. Yeah,
Go
we
ahead.
noticed. Well, we noticed that when we put out these larger books, they were selling. The numbers weren't really dropping. So if we put out like a book with more pages of content, we would still, and say it was a 5.99 book, it would still sell like a 3.99 book would, or close to it. And we were
Right.
like, well, why don't we just do bigger books with more content? Like it's easier. It gets, and then we started realizing like now people are consuming their content a little bit differently. People don't want to wait a month for a next story sometimes, or if it's like a 6 issue comic book arc, who wants to wait 6 months to read that?
Right.
So we started thinking like maybe people just want to consume their content all at once. So if I could put a 3 issue, like a 4 issue arc in one issue, sometimes like that's enough. Like we could do that, or 3 issues in it gives people a full story without killing them on the price point either, and keeping it reasonable. So we wanted to try it and see how that went for the next, for a year or two, and it's been going pretty well. I don't know if we'll, like, Grimm Fairy Tales is still a monthly. It's probably always going to remain a monthly. We might go back to monthlies on some books. Like we have had people who read Robin Hood pretty religiously. It's one of Robin Hood might be our most popular title. Um, some people do like the monthlies. So yeah, I don't. I'm sorry, I'm seeing this comment here, but yeah, but I don't know. Like right now, it's working for us. This format's working for us, and we're gonna keep going with it for as long as we can, and see how people kind of take to it.
and I was gonna, I seen Robert said that Robin was his favorite, and I figured that was kind of the favorite. But do you guys have, besides Robin, is there a character that people are normally drawn to, or a fan favorite?
Besides Robin.
Yeah, but oh, I know. I figured
Uh,
it would be Robyn, but
yeah,
besides her.
Van Helsing is the
Uh
next one, probably because well, she was always popular. And then the TV show came out. Not a lot of people know the TV show from Sci-Fi Channel, and then it was also on Netflix later on. Um, was based on our character. Of course, if you read the comics and you watch the TV show, you're not going to really make the connection. Um, so, needless to say, we changed. They changed a lot when we developed the project. We knew they were going to change a good amount. We
mhm.
were involved in some of the changes because that's what they wanted when we sold it, and we were like, "Well, we're selling it. Let's just go with what the studio, what the network wants." Um, but yeah, I mean, she's definitely probably second in line as far as popularity. I'd say the Wonderland stuff. The Wonderland stuff. Raven Gregory. I want to give him a shout out because he's a great writer, and I saw somebody also mention him here. Um, yeah, Raven came up with this Wonderland concept early on, back in 2007. Pitched it to us. We loved it right away. We gave him some notes, and then let him kind of go off and run with that. And that Wonderland series has been really evergreen for us. We've been publishing a ton of Wonderland since 2007, and that always sells really well for us.
I love the Wonderland stuff, but I definitely I everyone has their favorite, and I still love my Mathers. Like she's always gonna be my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, people like Sky, and then Seala before Sky, and
yeah,
Seal's been dead for a while, sadly.
yeah. So when it comes to any concepts that you guys have put in the books, or not just the Grimm stuff, but any concept, have you ever had any that fans absolutely hated or that were super unpopular?
God, probably. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, absolutely hate it. It's hard to. I'm trying to think, like, if there was any arc that I ever saw that somebody was like, "Oh my god, this is awful. You need to stop." I'm sure it's happened. I mean, it's just the nature of the business. I mean, not everything works. Not
Right.
everything you try. But I can't think of. I'm trying to think of like an actual um, time where I saw something or heard something where somebody was like pissed off. Doesn't happen too much.
That's good. That's a pretty
Thankful
good
that I
track record.
know of. That at least not people like writing me directly. I mean, I'm sure there's some stuff on out there that people didn't like, but you try, and then sometimes you sometimes you feel like, okay, that didn't hit as well, and you pivot.
Yeah, I mean that for 2005, that's a pretty good track record if it was that hard to think of. Yeah, I would say that's pretty good.
Yeah,
um you guys do a lot of merch and stuff too also.
yeah,
I noticed you guys have an advent calendar that's
yeah,
out right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I know I seen Amber do a little like TikTok and stuff. It was cute. But
yeah. Amber's awesome.
can you tell us a little bit about what that entails?
Yeah. So we did it. We started. I don't know if we started a couple years ago, maybe last year. I can't. God,
Mhm.
it's all melding together. But like, so because we do a lot of, and we didn't really touch on the collectability of our covers and all that. There's a whole separate world. You have your readers, and then you have your collectors, and then you have some people who cross into both worlds. Um, the collectors will collect our limited edition covers or our limited edition merch that we put out. And it's almost like a micro investment in a lot of ways. So like we see it always, it booms, especially like even during COVID, like the micro investing, a collectability in general across the board went
Right.
way up for most companies during COVID, right? Because people are like, hey, let me hold on to something that will go up in value. Our books always tend to keep or go up in value. So what we do for a lot of the collectors that we have, is we do like these Zen boxes or these advent calendars where they'll get, like with specifically say the advent calendar is we put 25 different items inside this box, and then you open up one item each day leading up to Christmas. So like if your calendar were to come on the 1st of December, you have one item for each day to open, and there's going to be different types of collectibles that you don't, it's almost like a mystery box. Some of the
Right.
stuff you'll know what's coming in it, and then some of the stuff you won't know. It'll be a rare item. It's sort of just a fun way to open up a box for yourself with if you're a big fan of ours, or if you're a collector of ours. And you just get different items for every day. Some are higher value than others, of course, and the box will certainly should retain its value and pay for itself. And it actually, with the items in the box, the 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 idea is it will increase in value over time. So a lot of those collectibles will generally hold their value, and that's the sort of idea behind those boxes, as well as our collectibles in general, as well as our variant covers, etc.
Yeah, and I love the Benjamin the Dragon plushie. So
Yes.
freaking cute.
I'm wondering. I don't know if the plushie's in every advent box or not. But it might be this. It might be. I'm not sure.
He's so cute. I love it. I love that those kind of like, out of the comic straight to your hands type thing. So,
Yeah.
working in comics, is that the funnest job you've ever had, or is that the most stressful job you've ever had?
Both. Um, both. I'm gonna go with both. Definitely stressful to run a small publishing house that's grown into a bigger publishing house. When we first started, it was Joe and I in his basement. Now we have 18 employees. We have hundreds of artists that we hire throughout the world.
Mhm.
Um, it's stressful. But it's a good stress because it's at the end of the day you're working for yourself and you're doing something you want to do. I like telling stories. I like to. I like that I can write something that's in my head that like let me give you a good example, I guess. Like for me, I have like some TV writer friends who are really talented writers that never had their TV series picked up. They've sold pilot episodes, or they've sold they've sold scripts over the years, and nothing has been produced for them because there's just so much
Right.
out there. And they'll come to me and they'll be like, "Hey, can I write for you? I want to write a comic." And I'll be like, "Well, it doesn't pay well. Like, you're a TV writer if you're not going to make
Right.
weekly writing a pilot script or a TV or a screenplay." And they don't care because to me, it kind of hit me when my one friend was like, "Hey, like I just want to have something out there that people see." Because like I'm writing all the time and I have all these stories and pilot scripts that nobody will ever get to see because they just never got made, right? So for me, it feels like at least like I could put something out there, and I know like no matter what, a few thousand people will read it, if not more, and that's pretty cool. And like to know like you're you're able to put your work out there, good or bad. Um, that's a good feeling, and I think that's why I like this job.
Yeah, that's a really good reason. I think it's a lot rewarding for the fans too, especially once they experience the universe and learning each individual character's stories, how you tie them all together. A lot of the times, I think it means a lot to your consumers also.
Yeah, for sure. Um, for sure. And we've grown our universe so much. Will there be more Dragon's Blood? Maybe. Nick Burmel would be thrilled if we did another Dragon's Blood. It Dragon's Blood sales were okay. I don't know if they warranted a sequel or not. We wish like that's what happens sometimes. It's just like TV, right? Like if the ratings aren't high enough, you can't always do a second season.
Right.
Um, it wasn't like they were like sometimes you get sales where they're on the cusp, where you're like, oh, it wasn't bad. We didn't lose money. So like, but that's not necessarily enough sometimes. Like you're not doing it just to not lose money. But yeah, I know Nick has a sequel in mind. We may do another Dragon's Blood.
And I also got another question. What was it like working on the Charmed book? It lasted a good while, and I heard
No.
people compared it in a good way to the
Yeah,
continuation of Buffy.
I gotta give credit to Pat Shand who wrote it. Um,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Pat wrote that series for us, he did a really good job. I didn't have to do too much. I was the editor in chief of the company at that moment in time, and thankfully Pat took that on, and he was such a good person. He watched that show religiously and like delved into it and really took it seriously. And CBS Consumer Products, they were reading every script and giving notes, but really with Pat writing it, they didn't have a lot of notes. Um, because they're tough. They're tough, and they really want they're keeping the brand. At least when we worked with them, was important to them, keeping that brand going and making sure it was done right. Um, it just was. It's tough. Our model isn't necessarily that model, right? Like we don't do a ton of licensed stuff,
Right.
like IDW does. Dark Horse, I mentioned. Guys like that just seem to really thrive on doing licenses and gobbling up those big IPs. I'm pretty sure Squid Games has probably been gobbled up already by and like I just good for them. Like that's just not necessarily now. If there's a license out there that I really want to go after, like an obscure one that I think we could really do something cool with, like with Seven, I knew what we wanted to do with. I knew Seven. We Joe and I were like, we want to do a prequel. We want to follow it. We want to follow John Doe through each sin throughout his life, and like we just like was just stark. It was right in front of us. We just knew that would make cool. That would be awesome. Be great,
Right.
great reading. I don't know what to do. If somebody were to go, Ralph, you want to do Transformers? It'd be a hard, I'd be, we'd be, I wouldn't know what to do with Transformers. Like, I couldn't do that at all. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not really of interest because I don't think we'd be the guys to want to make that happen. But if we feel passionate about something, then yeah, it works. Charm kind of ran its course. We felt like we did, I think, 2 seasons of Charm,
Mhm.
and like it felt like we did enough. Like I didn't know where else to take it, and so we told CBS we were going to let the license go. And I think Dynamite picked it up, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, they might have. That's
Yeah, I think they did for a while. I don't know really where it's gone since then. We've
I
done
think it's
Vikings. Vikings we
doesn't it
did.
have another TV show and everything now?
Yeah, there's another. Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah. They have the other TV show. I think it's still being published as well. So I don't really know where it's gone. Amber asked, "What is your dream license?" Uh, I don't know. It's a good question. Well, no, you know what my dream license is really it's a license we went out after really early before anything. We went after Stephen King. We wanted to do his short stories as comics, and
Ooh.
we were at the time we were told they were going to go with us. His people were very very open to it. We didn't have anything out yet though, so we kind of put the cart before the horse. And I think when
Oh.
they kind of like realized we were super super new, we had mocked up this like awesome an artist named David Seidman who's done a lot of work for us, mocked up these really awesome covers, and we had some interiors done, and we sent them samples of the books we wanted to do, like The Mist. I think The Mist was one of them. I forget what the other one was, but they said they were going to go with us, and then in the 11th hour they pivoted and went with Marvel, and Marvel ended up getting the license to Stephen King, and we were really bummed. Um, but
I
but
bet.
that was sort of like the feather in the cap moment where we were hoping like, oh, we were going to come out of the gate with Stephen King. So
That would be very cool. That and I know even DC now has Joe Hill doing the Hill House comics. So there's a
yeah,
lot, but that would be disappointing, definitely.
yeah, I would be. I would love to do like Stephen King because I'm just a huge Stephen King fan
Mhm.
in general. So like anything by him, I would love to adapt for sure.
I know you mentioned at the beginning of the last question, Pat Shand, and he does a lot of work for you guys. He worked
Mhm.
on the Goddess of Death, right? The last week's issue.
Yeah. That was the sequel to another issue I wrote in 2010. It was
Right.
a sequel. Not. I'm sorry, 2015. It was a sequel 6 years in the making. But yeah, he wrote that as well for Carries, which is our goddess of death for
Right.
our Grim Tales of Terror series.
I love it. It was so good too. Um, what made you guys come up with like the concepts behind I think it would have been 2 weeks ago now, like the bachelorette party?
That came about in our story conference. That was Dave Franchini pitching us at the story conference. I think he had just watched The Bachelor.
Yeah.
No, he watched not The Bachelor, The Hangover. He watched The Hangover, and he was like, "This would make. What if we did The Hangover as a horror story with like, but you do it with a bachelorette party instead?" And we were like, "Cool, let's crack this. Let's crack it. Let's figure out what the story is." So we outlined it in the room, and then they hired the writer, and the rest was history.
I love it. And that's exactly what it reminded me of too. Like, Grimm Fairy Tales meets The Hangover all in one
Yeah,
night. Yeah, I love it. I
yeah.
did have a question earlier I missed. Do you guys sell autograph copies of anything on your website?
We don't really sell much as far as autographed. We usually will sign a lot of stuff for free at
Oh wow.
conventions.
Hmm.
Sometimes, so we do live streams each month. We do a themed live stream every month, almost like basically a Comic Con. We started doing them during COVID, so we will, and we do retailer live streams every month as well. So we go on, we broadcast live. People can order the product literally in the comments. They'll comment what they want, and we'll sign it if they want it signed. If it's something we can sign, if it's some like if it in the when it's in the office, coming from the office, usually it's like Joe can sign it because he's in the office, or Dave can sign it. Artist signings are a little bit more difficult
Right.
because they're all over the place. So it depends. Sometimes the artists will be at the Comic Cons we're at. And then the retailer live stream, same thing. Like we'll do a live stream every month where we visit a retail store virtually, take the tour of the store, and then we sell like our newest releases of the week and some collectible covers as well, and then split the money with the store so they can make a little bit more money because of the we started doing it because of COVID and how like basically the mom and pop comic shops were getting hit really hard, not getting any foot traffic. So
Right.
we started doing these like sort of live streams where people can order from us, and then we ship everything, we take care of all that, and then we just send a check to the comic shop.
You
And
guys
people,
also do ones on Wednesdays, right? With Amber?
yeah, and Amber does the NCW. We don't sell on that one. That's just Amber talking about the new releases for the week, um, and just has like sort of interviews and such with the creators who may have wrote one of the issues that week, etc.
Gotcha. I don't see a lot of companies active like that on their YouTube channels. So I think it's really neat to see the interaction between, right? Like to be able to go in the comments and say hi or something like that. I think that's a way to keep your fan base, right? Like they know that they're appreciated. Got another question. What was it like working with Chuck Dixon when he come work for you?
Um, it was. I never worked with Chuck directly. Um, I know Chuck is one of the. He's a super professional writer.
Mhm.
Um, he delivers like really, and with Chuck, we let him sort of do his own thing a lot of times. Like we would get like he'd have the general idea of a storyline, and then he was a guy who you can give the script to and just like take it and run with it, and you didn't have to give him a lot of notes. He's just a pro. He's been doing it forever. I think Chuck's wrote the most comic book pages of like any comic book writer or something, like some crazy thing. Like, so he's been around forever. He's a really professional writer, and he delivers the story he delivers a story you want with he's just a good storyteller. So that's all you can ask for, really, is somebody who can tell a story and tell a comic book story, really, like in the
Oh
right way.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's so talented too, for sure, and so nice. I Chuck Dixon will always be one of those top tier writers no matter what. So, who is your favorite character from either of the big two? Do you have one?
The favorite character from the big two comic
I'm
book.
assuming Marvel and DC, yeah.
Yeah, probably Batman. I used to, I'd say Batman is probably. Trying, I
Got good
mean,
taste.
yeah, I mean, like that's the one series I don't read a ton of superhero stuff, and I've read some Batman arcs that I really enjoyed. I can't lie and say like I've read a ton of superhero books otherwise. So
Right.
that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
Perfect answer. It's my favorite too. Before we go here, what do you guys have? Do you have a Christmas special coming up or anything like that? I know you
Yeah,
said you have the virtual Comic Con. I thought I seen that was on the 9th or something. I
yeah.
could be
So the
wrong.
virtual con will be the 9th and the 10th. I hope you guys jump on and join us and check it out because we don't just sell. You don't have to go on and only buy stuff too. Like we do like fun stuff. Like we play games. We have interviews. We play interactive games. So we try to make it entertaining. We do panels. So I think this month we'll be playing. We do comic book theater as well. We're probably doing comic book theater where we read one of our comic books with a cast. So we if you guys if you guys know the movie Clerks, like Brian O'Halloran and Marilyn Gigliotti from the movie Clerks usually join us for our movie club each month. So they also will usually join us for our comic book theater and read characters in our comics with us. But we are coming out with a holiday special. I think it hits shelves in 2 weeks, but
Okay.
don't hold me to it. But it's a Tales of Terror holiday special revolving around travel of during the holidays.
Oh
If that
boy.
so our Tales of Terror, Grimm Tales of Terror series is sort of took the place of Grimm Fairy Tales in a lot of ways. Like it's sort of our homage to Tales from the Crypt and Twilight Zone. It's our own version of that with our Crypt Keeper, so to speak. Our own version of the Crypt Keeper is Carrie's the goddess of death. Um, she's sort of the conduit between each story. But yeah, if you like Twilight Zone, if you like Tales from the Crypt, you'll like Grim Tales of Terror.
Yep.
Drops
Oh,
12
they looked it up. It drops 8/12.
There you go. So it's
I mean
2 weeks.
12/8. Sorry,
Not
dyslexic
8/12.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So is that 2 weeks?
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah, I was right. There you go. 2 weeks. Yeah. So, um, and if you guys do want to pop in on the live stream, those are super easy. Just go to our Facebook Zenescope Facebook page or go to YouTube/Zenescope and you can watch it live as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was truly an honor to get to talk to you and be able to kind of, get some people that may not know about it. I'm glad to see that a lot of people knew the titles, but
Yeah,
um
it's pretty
I
cool. I appreciate the
yeah,
thing in the comments too. I hope I was able to answer most of you guys' questions. I appreciate the kind words and the support.
yeah, definitely. It's been going for a long time and I hope it keeps going just as long cuz it's always enjoyable. I always love the side titles. They're always funny and entertaining. So, yeah, definitely appreciate the work you put into it.
No, I appreciate you having me. You also great questions. So anytime you want to have me back, I will be willing to come back if you ever want to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ralph.
Thanks, Tristan.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.